So last time we did an update. We thought it was just a head gasket blown, okay?
Which, to be fair, at the moment, that really was the only thing wrong.
It did have a blown head
gasket.
Okay,
yeah,
but...
Alright, so today we're going to show you guys how to change a head gasket. The head gasket on this truck's blown, so we got to get the head off. First, we're going to start getting all the little things out of the way. We may take off the AC compressor. We haven't decided yet. We're going to take off the intake and a bunch of the wiring and stuff. That's going to be kind of step number one, is just get everything out of the way of the head itself. Then we're going to have to take off the valve cover, the head bolts, and the exhaust manifold bolts. And after that, the head should come right off once you take the head bolts out. So we'll get started and kind of stop when we see something important to show you guys.
We are also going to try to leave the AC compressor and all of the lines and everything still hooked up, so
yeah, we may not even have to move the AC compressor at all, but if we do, we're gonna leave the lines hooked up. And if you have a car that has an AC compressor like this, if you can do that, I would, just because then you won't have to recharge your AC system.
And if you have to recharge your AC system, there's a possibility that it'll just be broke.
That is very true.
You got
Is that where we're going?
A beautiful shot right there. Handle versus nothing right, nothing else. Yeah, right under off. Nothing else. Completely waste of time. Good. I'm gonna find some places you can go back.
Alright, so first thing we did, we're pretty far along right here, but I'll kind of go through the steps with you, is we removed the top of the fan shroud.
A baby spider has made the truck its home.
I'll get this bolt out for you, reach your hand in, and you can just get both.
Actually, good. That one.
Yeah, you can lay it down now too.
Spider webs.
Spider-Man. Which is over here. There is 3 bolts right here, 2 bolts on either side of this. And then this thing, the intake, was sitting on top of it, and that kind of comes off all as one unit. You can snake it underneath these lines to get it out. We then removed the AC compressor, which was 2 bolts on the bottom and 2 bolts in the back going this direction. Then once that was removed, we pulled it off to the side like this. Then this whole front accessory plate, which has your power steering pump and your alternator over here, there's 4 bolts that hold it on. To get it off, you have to actually remove the 4 bolts that hold the pulley for the fan off so that you can get to this last bolt right here. But once you do that, the whole thing can slide forward, and it's much easier to get to your alternator wires, so you can unplug it, and then you can undo the power steering pump lines, and then that whole plate comes out of your way, and you have a ton of room right here. So this is that plate. We just had it out of the way. But it basically just has these 4 bolts right here that hold to the head, and then this thing is bolted to the like, what would you call this, the fan clutch. Once you remove that, then you can get access to this bolt right here. And then there's these 2 bolts that are bolted to the top of the exhaust manifold, which are not that bad to get to, and there's one up underneath that's not that bad to get to, and this whole unit comes off. To be honest, if you're working on one of these S10s and you want to replace your alternator or your power steering pump, I would just take this whole thing off. That would be way easier. After that, the only other thing we did was remove the exhaust manifold bolts, which on most cars can be a huge pain in the butt. On this one, we got lucky and they all came off really easily. We aren't going to remove the intake. We're going to take it off with the head because there's some really hard to get to bolts up underneath here. The next thing we're going to do is try and loosen all of the head bolts just to make sure that none of them are like really stuck or anything. I've been told by a friend of mine that's worked in these a lot that the back 2 can be very difficult and can get stuck. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope that doesn't happen. The other cool thing about this is, I didn't realize this, but these engines have LS rockers, which is kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't really mean much for the performance of it. It's just a normal engine, but it's got LS rockers on it. So next thing we're going to do is loosen all these head bolts so that we can remove the head and see what the head gasket looks like. So really what we're doing applies to any 4-cylinder in-block cam engine, or maybe even an overhead cam engine. But the whole idea when you're trying to remove the head gasket is you got to get all the stuff out of the way. So we got the bracketry out the front of the engine, the exhaust manifold. Sometimes you don't even have to take the exhaust manifold and intake manifold off. You can just undo them lower down. But you got to get everything out of your way so that you can then get to these bolts that actually physically hold the head on. The more stuff you can leave on the head and still get the head out of the car, the better, because it's far easier to get it off once it's out of the car rather than trying to take it off in the car. I mean, these bolts, like I was saying, you'd mess up your hands really bad trying to get up in there. There's a lot of sharp stuff. So the main thing you're trying to do is just get the minimum stuff out of the way so that you can get to the head bolts to get the head off. I might thought it was like that. That's what I make better. This around here, and you know what, it does exactly what you think. You push it into here and it releases it. But what makes it easy is once you push it in, you'll feel it kind of push past a certain part where it kind of has bumped it released right there. Then you want to push this towards you just a little bit, then push the whole thing back off like that, and then it comes off. One of your things just fell. Okay. If you try and do it just by pulling it straight off, it like gets in this weird bind. So you pull it to you first and then push it off, and it'll come right off every time.
All right, so we're about to pull the head off.
And we got everything out of the way. The head is loose. We're gonna pull it off with the intake attached, like I was saying. We just gotta snake this wiring harness, which we are gonna have to remove that to get the harness off. So we need 8mm. We can snake this harness out from underneath there.
And then that'll be off.
There's a single one we can remove back there that might be a little bit easier to get to. Yeah, we'll do that one in the back there. And we'll remove the top end. Okay.
What was this little ring gasket for?
I think it broke off the back of this thing, which it may not do anything. It may just be like a piece that doesn't, you know, hurt anything, but you may have to get a new EGR valve, or you delete it. If we can delete it, that'd be nice. That's just an emissions thing that breaks. You know, if you can't delete it, then without it showing like a check engine light or something, then we'll have to, you know, cross that bridge.
Yep.
Now, do we need to unplug the? That is the, okay. Yeah, we already unplugged the injector harness. Should be ready to pull off now. All right, let's do it. I'd get in the front right here, and you're gonna have to lift up so we can get it off the dowel pins and slide it forward a little bit, and then we could pick it up the rest of the way.
Snake it.
That is the part because the header isn't connected anymore. All right, now we should be able to get it the rest of the way out. There is one more thing holding it. It's the.
Is that?
Yeah, it's the return.
Okay.
It's kind of gonna be weird though. I'm surprised that they would have one like that and one not. Yeah, it's gonna be like a 7/8, like a big open end wrench, which is inside here. What is this stuff? I got this hole. Aha, that's what I was gonna say. It's like I still got a bolt hole in it. Got it. That's ridiculous. Like this part of the fender? This part of the fender? It would be so funny if this was parked right next to it. What would be really funny is if you already had a red one. Oh, no, just park next to your truck and you're going to tow it. You're like, which one? Yeah, that would be even more funny.
Oh, it's so hot. These are gonna be so fun. Like now you guys try to use me, motherfuckers. And no one else wants to work.
Get out of there, man.
It's free. You did it. You did it. Good job, man. You did it.
Take the head off. That was the.
Do you want me to like kind of scoochy it?
Oh, yeah, you do need it because there's a stud that it's stuck on. There we go. Yeah. That's not the stud. And did you say that guy worked the AutoZone too, or just the?
He manages the oil change shop right next to it.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He's never worked at AutoZone.
No.
For some reason, I thought I recognized AutoZone too. There we go.
Woo!
Now let's look at the top of the. Yeah, pistons feel perfect. I mean, everything in there feels.
Yeah, it looks decent.
You can't even feel a ring ridge.
Heck yeah, dude.
No, so you're good. That's all flat too. I mean, it's perfect. Just needs a. Really, probably wouldn't even need to deck the heads. I think they just didn't tighten the bolts tight enough.
That's hilarious.
All right, so took the head off. If you look right here, light a little better. See where there's that black? It looks kind of like the carbon on these valves in the intake area or in the combustion area that's right between these two. Not as much right there, and then the same right here. That means the head gasket was leaking. If you look, actually, you can see where it wasn't leaking into this cylinder, but it was leaking into that cylinder. See how the black? You can see the silver mark that it stops at right there, and then there's the black mark where the carbon was getting through right here. Same thing. This one looks like it was leaking between both, and this one was minorly leaking. And as well, you can look on the gasket and see that same marks on each one of these. But if you flip it over on the block side, it wasn't leaking. Maybe a tad right there. So what that tells us is that the block is actually probably in pretty good shape, and that the head was where the head gasket leak was. Also, this head, if you look at it, looks fairly clean, as there's not a lot of carbon buildup, and it's a 150,000 mile engine, which isn't a ton, but that should show more of this. So this head's definitely been taken off before, but the bolts, when we went to loosen them, were not very tight. So what I think happened is that a head gasket was replaced for whatever reason, maybe it blew, and they replaced it, and they just didn't tighten the bolts correctly, and now they came loose. I mean, the bolts on the outside right here were super easy to take off, and then the inside ones were a little tighter, but they were not as tight as they should have been. If you look on this intake side, look how clean that is. If it's a 150,000 mile engine, it would be completely black inside here, just like the exhaust side would be. So this head has been redone fairly recently, but they didn't install it correctly. As a matter of fact, that right there looks like it may have been leaking out the side even, some exhaust gases. So I mean, it's for sure a head gasket leak, 110%. So we're gonna deck the head, maybe run something to kind of clean the block up, and throw it back together, and it should run. So while we were taking this apart, we noticed this thing has what's called a heat tab. Now I work at a machine shop, and what we do is when we finish a head after redoing it, we put this thing on here. It's got a little piece of solder in the middle of it. This stuff melts at 220 degrees. So and it is melted out of this head. If you look, it's indented. It would be flat if it wasn't melted. That means that this head was overheated. That's probably why the head gasket blew, or the head gasket blew and caused the head to overheat. Either way, that means the head's been overheated, and that also confirms our suspicions that the head has been redone in the past. So that's even another sign saying that the head gasket was the problem the whole time. This guy originally thought the timing chain had jumped. I don't really know what led him to believe that or what didn't, but everything that we can see makes us say that it had a head gasket leak. And I mean, everything here is pointing towards that. We'll see if it runs already.
Good oil. So we fixed the head gasket, all right? Well, I drove it for a little bit because it ran a little bit better, and then it was still running bad. It wouldn't let you do wide open throttle, and it would stutter and surge and whatever. So we thought maybe it's out of time, because that's what the dude initially said, and you know, we're just hard-headed, and we didn't try to check what he thought was actually wrong. So we pull the timing cover off and check everything, and lo and behold, it was out of time. Just by one tooth, okay? Changing settings.
Get it more like...
Well, the phone is all...
that. Now see how that looks.
So we get everything back in time. Now, the timing chain looked brand new. Like, it had
we think
just been put in.
We think someone installed it wrong.
Yeah, we think that it was replaced, and they installed it wrong, and then that might have even been what blew the head gasket.
But after we changed the timing chain, it ran like a whole crap load better.
Yeah, after we changed the timing chain, it was like everything was fixed. Okay, so I drive it for like a week.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit longer, a couple days, who knows? I don't even know.
Not super long.
It had so many problems that I have no idea what day it is. And then it started doing weird stuff. Started surging, throwing codes. It had a misfire.
Yeah, almost like what it was doing before we changed the timing chain. And in the process of making sure it was a timing chain, we literally we changed like a crap ton of other stuff too.
Well,
we changed a bunch of sensors.
We're getting that, okay? So we fixed everything, we thought, okay? And then we still had a cylinder 4 misfire. So we had already changed all the spark plugs and coils and yada yada. So we thought it was the ignition coil. Well, no, that wasn't even the
we changed that before.
I changed.
We're getting a little mixed up because there's so much stuff.
The ignition control module was the very first part that I changed.
Yeah,
okay?
then we changed the coil
because one of the ignition coils looked like it had already been changed. So we thought maybe it's not the problem. We'll change this ignition control module, also because that's what AutoZone was telling us was bad. So
Yeah, we shouldn't have listened to that.
I mean,
not that we knew,
but it didn't help us or hurt us in the end because look where we are. Okay,
yeah, okay.
So we replaced.
It was absolutely AutoZone.
We replaced. We replaced the ignition control module. Okay, and then still has cylinder 4 misfire. So we changed another ignition
We changed the actual coil, the other
Yeah,
coil,
we
the
changed
one
the
that looked
actual
worse.
ignition coil. The other one that we thought hadn't been
That
changed.
still didn't do it.
Nothing changed at
And
all.
then
Okay?
we did
And then I
map,
changed
map
the-
sensor.
I think I changed the map sensor and then went haywire.
Yeah. Then everything got
Started
worse.
throwing crankshaft
The
codes,
yeah,
camshaft
it
codes.
was just giving up.
It was still misfiring.
So then we thought maybe it's PCM.
Nope.
Oh, we had something between that?
Nope. Then we
Oh,
thought that it was
okay.
maybe the crankshaft and the camshaft position sensor. So we put new ones of those in.
Which was
we
not
also broke one off in
easy,
the block.
way easier
We'll just
said
kind
than-
of pan to that video real quick of
this
us.
isn't just like,
of that
ooh, pull it
happening.
out.
All right, so this matches none of the connectors that I've bought. Doesn't match the crank or the camshaft, but that is right there. That's where it pulled off from. And then I think that's the camshaft position sensor. If my phone will stop freaking out. And then I also have to replace that sensor right there. If the phone will corroborate that one. And then this is the plug on the sensor that just completely broke. That's on the ground.
No, it was
Yeah.
like, let's...
6 hours
horrible.
of
Yeah.
Did y'all have to drill that bitch out?
No,
We
we
had to
put
put
a
a
drywall screw in the sensor because it snapped off flush with
and
the
then
block.
we basically like
Yanked it out with a
slide hammered
chain.
it out.
It was... Again, though, it's very, very... You got lucky. It was very, very hard to see. It was really bad. We have videos of it. It was bad.
I also changed the IAT. I
Yep.
also changed the
Oh, you're talking about the
TPS.
TPS, yeah, map sensor. That
I
didn't
also
do it.
changed the.
We did change the PCM, and we did find out, just a little factoid for you
Oh, yeah,
guys.
you can't reprogram an ECM.
You can reprogram the ECM out of one of these, and I don't know every GM vehicle is this way because not every GM vehicle has a body control module. Like my OBS over there doesn't. But anyway, this, if you get the PCM out of another car, you have to also get the BCM. No matter how many times you try and do the key relearn, it will not work until you have both of the BCM and the ECM from the same car. So we figured that out. So we put the old ECM back in, and
we also replaced the downstream O2
two sensor. Yeah, and somewhere along...
And I hit out the cat because I thought the
Your
cat
cat
might
was
be
clogged,
which
yeah.
it was kind of
Messed
clogged,
up,
which
yeah.
we'll throw that video
But
in there too as we're explaining.
Also, somewhere and all that, it did get
Everything.
rid of the misfire code, but then it started throwing a lean code, like it was a lean condition.
So then our last problem that we fixed today before it broke again was it was throwing a P171, which is the system lean, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So we thought, oh, maybe it's not getting fuel. So we retraced our steps all the way, did the fuel pressure tester, drove it. We'll pan to that video. And it was having fuel problems, okay? Just went for a little drive. And when I started it, it was at and holding 40 PSI. And as I drove, it slowly went down and down. And now it's just, I'm letting it idle at 20. I'm about to blip the throttle and see if anything happens, but something's definitely weird with fuel. So I let it sit after blipping it, making it die, and get the fuel pressure all the way down. And then I started it, I haven't touched the gas or anything, and the fuel pressure started to go up. Not up to where it should be, but a little bit up. Going back down. Now won't rev. So I checked the fuel filter. It was completely fine. So we pulled the bed off for like the 9th time. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's been so many
It's been only
times,
4 or 5, but still.
Still.
More times than it should have.
Yeah.
Pull the bed off, get the tank, get the pump out, and it's dirty as hell. It looked like someone just made a sandbox in there, basically. I mean, like the there was rust, but also
Sands. I mean,
sand.
it
Just,
might have been rust, but it felt like sand.
it felt like sand. Sand rust.
Fuel.
This is the easiest way to fill the gas tank. Just have to take the bed off. But she was just a little dusty. Just a little dirty.
It was clogging up shit.
And then also, where's the sock?
Oh, they're inside the bed, I think.
Nope.
They're in the corner right there.
Oh, dear.
These are like a week old.
Yeah, this is like maybe, here, let's get out of the way first.
Yeah.
This is like literally less than a month of driving because it hasn't been running. So this is the outer sock.
Yeah.
This is the inner sock, which inner sock is black. Like, that should be 100,000 miles plus, and it's 10.
Yeah.
10 miles.
Literally. All right.
So, we get all that fixed,
and
get the tank back in, get it cleaned,
great.
vacuum it out, clean all the sand, get the pump back in, test drive it. We drove around the block, I bet, 25 times.
Perfectly.
Park it, get ready to put the bed back
not
on.
even park it. He's pulling in. He's pulling in, okay? And you see where he's pulled in, he's right here with the thing, okay? He starts backing up, and I'm standing, let me show you where I'm standing. I'm standing right about here. And as he's driving, I see the moment that I start seeing splashes from like right there-ish.
And we hear like a
And like a
release of
hissing
pressure.
noise. And
kind of like when you
we start
the pressure.
so we start looking, and there's coolant dripping, okay? So our first idea is we think the heater core hoses. No. Unfortunately. So then we think maybe there's this little like plate on the back of the intake down here that blocks off coolant. So we're thinking that could be leaking. Check that, and the top of the bell housing.
The heater core box.
Yeah, the top of the bell housing's not wet. We check maybe the heater core box. Floor pan's not wet. It's not leaking from there. So the only other place that can be leaking is the freeze plug in the back of the block.
It is the freeze plug. We don't think it blew a head gasket.
Well, and if it was leaking from the head gasket, the top of the transmission pan would be
leaking
wet.
all down the engine, and it'd be pretty visible.
It's not. So,
well, we fixed it, and then it broke itself again.